Welcome to Queer Conversation with Dr. Sharon Dane. My name is Silke Bader. Dr. Sharon Dane has a PhD in social psychology and the research focus is on improving the rights and conditions of LGBTQI+ Australians. From 2009 and 2016, she presented research findings at several federal government Senate inquiries into the change of marriage law so that all couples could marry, irrespective of sexual orientation, gender identity, and sex characteristics. Sharon plays a major role in the design of Just Equal Australia's LGBTQI+ national surveys and the analysis of the data. This Just Equal Australia survey seeks to find out the election priorities of LGBTQI+ Australians and their allies. The results will be used to advocate for formulating government policy and as a standard against which to judge party policies ahead of the next federal election. Welcome, Sharon. Thank you for joining us and on our Queer Conversation series. I was really interested to see the survey that Just Equal Australia is running at the moment. You have been very much involved with it. I believe from your background you were also one of the researchers back with marriage equality, and you're now wanting to do something leading up to the election with Just Equal Australia, giving politicians directions what they should prioritize for our community. Could you tell us a little bit more about the survey and why people should fill it in?
Okay, sure. Well, the main thing is we find that politicians tend to assume what it is that the LGBTIQ community want. They also assume what we will accept as what they think is a compromise. Examples of that are like the plebiscite that we had to try and fight. Also, a good example more recently is the religious discrimination bill. Now, for example, Labor were stood by not allowing children or students, right, to be discriminated against in faith-based schools. But when it came to teachers and other staff, then they were allowing it to go through. So they actually let the bill go through based on that. So we need to really, instead of dodging bullets all the time, which is what we have been doing for a lot of the time that we've been advocating, is to start moving forward. So we need to be able to say, this is what we want. We actually go to the community to find out, on a national level, what it is. So these are our voices that you need to listen to. Do not just assume what it is as a community we want, right? Mm. And that is critical because, like I said, the best way to actually stop going backwards is to keep moving forward. You don't want to just keep on putting out fires. You actually want to have some positive things that we can present to politicians and say, here, this is what we are prioritizing. There are a lot of other important issues, but this is like what we would like to see sooner rather than later. The other thing too is that we can use that then as a gauge to judge, what parties actually do. So if we say we've just put this forward to say these are really our priorities across a range of different issues and different demographics within a very diverse LGBTIQA+ community, then we can actually see, well, how well have they done? What are these parties actually putting forward? So that is, in a nutshell, why it's so important.
That voice coming from the community is really, really important. I mean, there have been so many surveys done, and I think people are survey tired. Yeah. But I really urge our viewers to give this a go. It's 15 minutes. It's not a short survey, but it's really worthwhile. And I filled it in yesterday, and I must say it was super difficult because the question of prioritizing it, what's important, but you've done it in such a clever way where you have kind of 2 steps of filling out the survey. Do you want to explain that a little?
Sure. So because human brains are quite limited in their ability to rank a lot of things and keep those things in mind, if you were given a list of, say, 10 or 12 issues, it'd be very hard to rank that and prioritize, right? So our brains don't work that well. So to address this, we do it in 2 stages. In the first stage, in a sort of and we do this in different sections as well, like we have things about health, we have things about disability, We have things about discrimination. So they're all in different categories to start with. Then within those categories, we get you to select what you think are what we call high or very high priority. So it sort of narrows it down. So that helps you. Once you've made that selection, your selection will then come up on a different screen, and then you'll have a smaller number of items to rank. Like, which of these, even though they're all important, would you like to see first, second, third, that sort of thing. So that sort of like breaks it down into a manageable chunk.
That's right.
Much easier on the brain, basically.
No, well done. We need that. And you know, the surveys are anonymous. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, definitely anonymous. Yes.
Yeah.
And the questions, if you don't want to answer any question, you're free to just not answer it. Okay. There's also some boxes that say prefer not to say for demographic questions, but you can just leave it blank if that's what you prefer to do. Okay. We've tried to get a lot of issues across here. You know, like I'm talking about aged care, rural strategies, youth strategies, indigenous strategies, transgender diverse strategies, intersex strategies, asexual strategies. So there's a lot there. But like I said, because we've broken it down into separate chunks, it's more manageable. And also, importantly, we will give priority to the responses of people that those issues directly impact. So, for example, if you're answering everyone can answer and prioritize issues relating to transgender people, but people who are transgender, who tick that obviously in that survey, we know who they are, not personally, but we know by their data, then their responses will get priority. Right? So it's because they're the people who are most likely to be impacted. And that applies across a range of different issues. If you like, for example, for aged care, you know, people who are in an older age bracket will have more priority over the ranking of that. Issues to do with youth will have more priority with that. People from non-English speaking backgrounds, so issues relating to that, they will get higher priority. So we still get everyone to do these. We prefer everyone to do it. But at the end, when that data is recorded in our reports, we will also put what the priorities are of the people that are directly impacted on.
And I found it very empowering as well that you've given the option of, and like with free text, where you could suggest other topics that weren't listed. And saying so, I love that it was there, and you might get some very surprising data there. Yep. But I couldn't think of anything. I felt you really did cover everything that is of concern for our community right now. So,
I mean, I'm sure there will be other things, but we have to sort of, otherwise it will become coming too long and too hard. Yeah.
Can you talk about what your I don't know if you can, what your gut feeling is, what one of the top priorities might be, or if you don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to sway participants in any way. That would be probably the wrong thing as a researcher to do. But it's no secret right now that obviously because of the religious discrimination bill that has, luckily been stopped for now, that's foremost on people's minds. How that will pan out in the survey, I'm not sure, because it may be people will think, well, that's done and dusted, and they won't prioritize it. Or some people might think, well, it might raise its ugly head again, and they will prioritize it. So I have no way of knowing how that's going to go, which is good because I don't want to influence anyone taking the survey.
Of course not, yeah. Yes. The last part of the survey talked about a body that you hope to establish, or that you want to get an indication if people feel that's important. Mm-hmm. What do you want to do with this data?
Well, towards the end of the survey, there were a few things, right? There was about having basically an LGBTIQA representative in Parliament, okay? So that was one. The other is to have a body that oversees smaller groups. So rather than have one big group that tells represents everyone and that's it, have a group that actually supports, like an umbrella group that supports smaller LGBTIQ groups. Right, so that we can all come together, because those smaller groups are experts in their own domain. So you don't need a bigger group trying to do everything for you. That doesn't really work very well. Like, for intersex issues, well, you go to intersex groups. But that doesn't mean we can't have an umbrella group, that sort of represents all those smaller groups. We're probably visualizing a group that is not putting down Equal Australia, but I'm talking about a group that is more national orientated, and can actually then get together all these smaller groups. Just Equal Australia is working on that, but that doesn't mean we're the group. It just means we can be a part of that bigger group, right? So it's yet to be really established, a quality group like that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's right now politicians think of certain groups that they go to, that they think represent the LGBTI community at large, but that's not necessarily the case. Mm. So we need to work.
That's all they've got to work with right now. Right?
Exactly. So right. Yeah, precisely. So we try to make it clear to politicians that, you know, Just Equal Australia is also a national group, and that we need to, basically our biggest weapon is getting the voices of the community out there, and more detailed priorities, you know, that which, as you can say, when you've done the survey, you can see are in there. So they take a little bit more thought, but that's what we want to try and do.
First of all, thank you so much for doing this work, Sharon, and whoever else is behind this. I know Rodney Crome is behind this as well, and the team from Just Equal Australia. This is really important work, and I hope that the listeners today will go to the link that we post directly to the survey and fill this in. It will be out for how much longer? For another 2-3 weeks?
I'd like to say probably up to 3 weeks, we hope, right? Okay. We try to get as many people as possible so that we can then take that to politicians and say, you know, this is a good cross-section of our community in terms of demographically, you know, every state and territory, age groups, that for example, right? So in order to do that, we need to let it go a little bit longer. And one thing I want to say, which I forgot to say earlier, is in terms of what the content in the survey, we went to, like for smaller groups, when I'm talking about like intersex, trans, bi, asexual issues, we went to representatives of those organizations about that. So it's not just Equal just sitting down, putting these ideas down. Many of our team members actually belong to those groups, as well as we went externally to get advice. So, you know, it's, I'd like to, the survey itself is an effort from different areas as well, not just Equal doing it.
Yeah. Now you can actually feel that in the way you ask the questions, and so the language is very, very carefully chosen, and you know people are sensitive to that.
Exactly, they are. Yeah. So they should be.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Sharon, for joining us today, and good luck with the survey. And LOTL is always happy to report on any results. You know, if you wanted to share them with us.
As soon as we have the results, I'll be in touch.
Excellent. If you enjoy queer conversation, make sure to check out our website LOTL.com, where you will find more content on LGBTQI+ topics. And don't forget to follow us on social media. My name is Silke Beider, and thank you for your company.